had Canadian geese on my pond for about 3.5 weeks now. There's actually 4 out here this morning. There have been 2 this whole time, and then one morning like 10 stopped in just for a morning. So cool. When our house is built, there will be a little back porch right here I'll be able to sit on and look at the pond and watch the geese stop by. There's some sort of goose drama happening over here right now. I think that there's a mated pair here that has a nest on the farm. And it looks like these 2 are trying to chase off these other 2 that came this morning. Yeah, there's a goose fight happening. So, I've told this story here on this platform before, but when we bought our first property in Arkansas, it was a foreclosure, it was a wreck, and it needed a lot of work before we could even move in. And we were Jeremiah was going out and staying out there, and he was working like through the late hours of the night, and I was staying home with the kids. Well, after a few weeks, we got to the point of painting, and so we switched, and I went and stayed out at the house, and he kept the kids so I could paint. And it was my first night to ever spend there. In the morning I woke up, it was kind of like this. I mean, it was April, so a little later in the year, but in Arkansas, so South Carolina runs a little earlier than there. But anyway, I woke up 6-ish, 6:30 in the morning, and I remember going and sitting on the front porch right as a flock of wild geese landed on the pond across the street. We didn't have a pond. And I remember just sitting on the front porch crying because it was, I mean, I'd wanted to live in the country and have a farm like my whole life, my whole memory. And it was like, wow, it's happening. This is real. This is mine. And, I was sitting on the front porch of a total mess of a house, on a mess of a property. It's all we could afford. But those wild geese, like, welcomed me home. And so they're very special to me every year. And now we have a pond on our property, and they land on my pond. But it's just really a precious thing. Good morning, frogs. Look at that. The willow tree is getting big. So this is the second one we planted. This isn't the one we planted the first time we came here. And this one's actually done a little better because when we planted this one, we actually lived here to keep up with it. The other one, it's honestly planted a little too deep. So since the wild geese first moved my heart so much, and it's been 10 years ago, I learned about the poet Mary Oliver. She's one of my most favorites. If you like reading poetry at all, if you by some chance have not made it down the wormhole of her work, she has quite a lot of incredible work. And she has one poem in particular that I really love called Wild Geese. And the last few lines say, and I hope I recite this properly, I think I know exactly what it says, but I may be a little off. It says, whoever you are, no matter how lonely, the world offers itself to your imagination, calls to you like the wild geese, harsh and exciting, over and over, reminding you of your place in the family of things. And when I first read that poem, it made me think of that first morning with the wild geese on, like, my first morning as a farm girl. My asparagus harvests are currently kind of meager, but enough to cut up and put in something. Like this would go well in a quiche or a frittata. Just cut up, sauteed, and then put in. That's probably what I'll do with this. When I only have a handful of something, I have to be a little creative in how to use it. Oh, look! Happy birthday, little guys. Y'all, these seeds, okay, these are telephone peas. Go all the way down. They're coming up pretty well. I sowed these very thickly because these seeds are from 2018, so they were a little on the older side. and I wasn't sure how germination would go with them being that old, but appears to be fine. I sowed them pretty quickly. I sowed them pretty thickly, and they're coming up all down here, so that's cool. So those peas will grow on this trellis and hopefully produce before it gets too warm. Last year we had such a cool spring. It didn't really get hot until like late June or early July. I mean, it was hot comparatively to like a lot of places. A lot of you would think that it was hot, but for here it did not get like super hot until a little later in the season. It was also extremely wet. So I'm gonna just take the risk this year and plant out, you know, some brassicas a little later than I necessarily would, because if this spring repeats like the last one, they would produce. If it doesn't stay cool, they'll just go to seed. So it's like not a huge risk. I've already got them started, so it's like plant them and maybe get something, throw them in the trash and get nothing. Feels like springtime. So good. Oh man. So I have been keeping the doors shut on the greenhouse so my cats do not terrorize everything. Alright, I'm gonna turn the fans off for a second and so I can talk to you guys. But Avocado, my little garden kitty, bless her, I adore her, but she is a holy terror, turns out. And I was coming in and finding like seed packets on the ground, picking them up, and at first I was like, is it a cat or is it the wind? And then there was a day that was just not very windy and there were seed packets everywhere. I was like, okay, it's a cat. And then she knocked off this tray, and then she decided she wanted to nap on top of the trays of seedlings. So that doesn't work for me, obviously. So yesterday we kept the door shut all day. It wasn't super sunny. So hopefully today I'm gonna take I have these covers over these windows because these are jalousie windows, and they leak a lot of heat, so we built these covers that go over them. I'm gonna take them off and like fully vent this, have the fans fully on, and see if I can maintain a cool enough temperature with the main doors shut to try to keep the cats out of here, because she could definitely just wreck a lot of the work that I've done, and obviously I don't want that. So I have some little baby beets that I'm going to plant out here pretty soon. These are the brassicas, and we've already planted quite a few of these out. I'm going to give some of them away. I have a couple friends I've already committed them to, but I'm going to throw some more out just because we'll see. We might not get anything. The risk is not necessarily just the weather. The other thing is there comes a point, at least where I live, that the pest pressure in the spring on brassicas is insane. And you know, whiteflies, and cabbage moths, they'll come and just completely destroy everything that I've got going. Oh, I have ground cherry babies. Happy birthday. Look, how cute are they? What are these? Oh, fennel. Nice. Can't even remember what's in all these trays. I think these are all peppers and tomatoes. Yep. These peppers aren't up yet. These are tomatoes that Will got at a local farmer's market, and he saved the seeds out of one of the tomatoes. It's like a local heirloom. More beets started. I'm gonna thin these down. So if there's 2 together, I'll plant out 2 together. Some of these have like that's like 5 growing. I'll thin it down to 2 or 3, but I'm gonna cluster plant these like Charles Dowding does. I learned that from him, and it actually works really well. You don't get as big of beets when you cluster plant, like you plant 2 or 3 really close together. But I don't mind because I don't want them to be super big. I like them smaller. Peppers coming up. More peppers. I was actually excited for this. This is a pepper called Arroz con Pollo, and I really like it. It's like a seasoning pepper. I wouldn't call it sweet or spicy. It's neither one of those, but it's like just a seasoning pepper that is obviously used with chicken and rice, because that's what that means. But I grew it for years, and then the last few years that I've tried to grow it, my seeds haven't germinated very well. So I was excited to see these 2 plants. That'll give me enough to save some seeds from them. Finally getting some true leaves on my tomatoes, so we're going to be separating these soon. Not today. Today I have a kitchen work day, but probably this weekend sometimes I'll start separating those. More tomatoes. And all across here, We have lots of babies. Very wonderful. That's funny. I planted all these shallots and like really tightly together in this container, because with any sort of alliums you can do that and then separate them out. And so there's so many sprouting that it's like picking up all the soil. That's funny. So this really pretty eucalyptus plant I got from my hairstylist, Matt. How cool is that? He said he's had several of them in pots, and he brought me this one, and I'm very, very excited. I want to plant it, and I'm hoping it'll get big enough soon that I can, you know, harvest this to, I want to be able to put like a bundle in the shower. I just think that would be really nice. It was so foggy this morning when I got up, I could not see past my front porch. It's cleared up a lot even since I just came out to shoot this video. Oh, look at this. This is a cool thing. These are Nanking cherry bushes. So these are a Chinese cherry type plant. They're bushes, and the fruit is not a true cherry. It looks like a cherry, and it tastes like a sour cherry from everything that I've read. I've never tried one. Will has tried one single fruit of these one time, and he said, he's the one who told me about them and said they would definitely be worth growing. But I think I remember them saying that they were actually more closely related to a plum, but they're like really small, bright red fruits. Kind of look like maraschino cherries, and they're supposed to be pretty sour but flavorful, and therefore good for making like jams or things where you're gonna add a lot of sugar to it. We did these 2 plants, and they've been in now for a couple years. Of course, with perennial anything, I think they say first it sleeps, then it creeps, then it leaps, and they've just recently grown a lot. So they just kind of, last year they didn't do anything. There was no blossoms, and now we have quite a few blossoms, and there's a very good chance we'll get like a good little harvest of cherries, probably enough to do something with. Maybe not make a ton of jam or jelly, but maybe a little bit, which is nice. We're talking about it the other day, and I think I'm going to take 2 of our blueberry swells and actually plant 6 more of these, just because it would be nice to just have some variety. I mean, we're going to have tons of blueberries with that space, as well as raspberries and blackberries, and I just felt like having some variety would be good. Oh, they're so pretty. The blossoms are just lovely. I forgot my asparagus. I'm about to walk back up to the house. I gotta milk my goats this morning. I came out this way first just because I was waiting. Jeremiah is finishing up the stanchion today, and as it stands right now, I've learned about my goats. They will stand perfectly if there's a man nearby. Now, they're used to being milked by a man, and I was curious how they would react to me, because they are 100% used to being milked by a man. And the first couple times that I milked them, I was like, they're angels. They don't even try to step. They just stand there. Well, Jeremiah was standing there. And so then I came out once, and I had Toby and Ezra with me, and they were helping me. And I don't know if it was because the kids were like so, you know, they were excited and kind of high energy, and the goats were not settled. But that one was a little more difficult. I mean, it still wasn't awful. I've definitely had worse situations of trying to milk goats that didn't want to be milked, but it was a little more difficult. And then I came out by myself one time, and that was not happening. I was like, okay, well, maybe they learned that they can walk off, so they are. So Maya came out with me the next time. Nope, stood perfectly still. So he's finishing the stanchion today, but the last couple days I've had to wait until he or somebody else was available to like stand there next to the goats so they won't walk off. I have like a human milk stanchion. Oh goodness, guys, my heart is just so full in this space. I'm so eager for this year. It is going to be completely transformed in no time at all. Somebody the other day commented on our swales and about how the grass was growing up in them, and asked what we were going to do about that. Actually, nothing. We're going to just let the grass grow over them, because we're going to put blueberries in there. We may heavily mulch like around the base of each blueberry plant, but this soil we used to build these swales was like dug up from other places on the farm. It was already completely permeated with Bermuda, and there's not really a good way to like keep Bermuda from growing on a low built bed like this when you've got Bermuda all around. Bermuda's tough, man. I heard it called zombie grass once because, you know, you think you've killed it and then it just comes back. And I think that's pretty accurate. And so in cases like this, we knew putting these in that the Bermuda was going to grow over, and it's fine. The swales will still work if Bermuda is growing over those mounds. And then like in the individual area where we put each plant, you know, we'll heavily mulch around the plant to, you know, to allow it to get more established and to help keep the weeds down right around it. And then that way we can just kind of weed eat between the plants where the Bermuda comes up. So it's not the most ideal, but it's the situation that we're in, and there's really just not that much you can do about it. Bermuda's a beast, and we were able to keep it out of the raised beds because we built them, you know, 24 inches deep, and we used weed berry underneath them, and we made sure that the soil we put in them was, you know, heavily composted from somewhere else that wasn't full of Bermuda seeds. And anytime there's even some remotest amount of that grass like creeping up on our raised beds, we're very vigilant. But anything in the ground, like, is just going to be a part of growing it. I've yet to figure out how to make that go away. It is disgustingly wet out here, so bad. It's just the time of year for that. I mean, it happens every year, but every year when we're in the midst of like this mud season during rainy season, I'm like, is this ever gonna go away? The smell of the farm in like March, man, it'll really test your love of the thing. With all that mud, it's just not great. It dries out. It'll be lush and green and lovely and not disgusting in, I don't know, at least maybe like 4 weeks, something like that. But for the time being, it's just, you gotta make sure that you don't slip and fall in the mud, the stinky poop mud. And yes, I have done that before. If you missed my last video, one of my does adopted the little unrelated bottle baby that we'd gotten. Now, I've talked to a couple people since then who have told me that they have had goats adopt kids that weren't theirs. Most people told me it was always the goat's idea. So with cows, like if you have a dairy cow or any cow that's given birth and is in milk, you can, for the most part, choose to graft a calf onto that cow. Like to nurse either alongside her calf or in place of her calf or after her calf is weaned if she's still in milk. A lot of times they'll still nurse another calf. But with goats, they are, this is not the right lid. With goats, they are not about that. That's not either. I don't know where the lid is. I'm just gonna put a towel over the top of it. All of that to say, this morning I separated the kid last night because one of my does has been like really low on production. At first I didn't realize she was nursing that kid. And then I saw how lovey she was being on him and I thought that is really unusual. And then I saw him nursing and I'm like, oh, okay. You're not a terrible producer. You're just feeding a baby. So I pulled the kid last night. He's like 8 weeks old. He's definitely old enough for that. And this morning I'm gonna milk her and see how much I get. I'm actually really pleased with the situation because the breeder I bought from separates kids at birth, and she had given birth very recently. And I was thinking when I first got her and her milk was lower before she was nursing the kid, I'm like, man, I wonder if her milk has fully even come in yet. So the fact she adopted this kid, I was probably going to bring her supply up a lot. And it's sweet, you know, like they're good for each other. So I separated him last night, but he's going back in with her for the day today. There we have it. Baby and his new mama. It's a sweet thing. I think we're gonna get a full gallon today. I am not gonna feed the little baby a bottle because last night I milked Claire, the one who adopted him, and I got like half a cup from her. And so I separated the baby, and this morning I got 2 quarts, which leads me to know that he's getting plenty throughout the day. So I'm now literally just calf sharing, or kid sharing with her, and he will be a damn raised kid, even though he's spent the first 8 weeks of his life as a bottle baby. It's wild. As far as I know, she's never raised a kid. And as far as I know, he's, you know, I mean, like, he never even suckled from his mom. He was pulled immediately at birth. And 8 weeks later, their instincts just kick in, which is very cool. But I don't want to overfeed him, because if you overfeed any bottle baby, calf, kid, whatever, you risk milk scours. And so right now, I'm going to just watch him and make sure. If he starts looking kind of hollow, or like if I feel like he's not getting enough, then I'll come in and I'll feed him bottles in the morning. But I don't think that he needs it. I mean, he immediately just went to her. She was holding back. She gave me 2 quarts, and whenever I put him in there, he started nursing. And I could see a little bit of foam at the corner of his mouth. So he was getting something. She was letting down more for him than she did for me. So I'll keep an eye on it. So this evening I won't milk her, which, you know, it'll be, I'll get a little less milk than I would if I were bottle feeding him. But it's fine. I'm getting plenty. I've got so much milk right now that I need to figure out something to do with it. I think I'm gonna make some cheese today. I didn't want to like go ham on the goat's milk as soon as I had it, because I you know, like, I'm kind of easing back into it. So I actually have been in a little bit of a flare. Multiple people commented the day I got the goats, I was itching a lot. And I don't know if it's just I've been in the soil a lot, I've been outside a lot, and of course now I'm milking, so I'm hands-on with that. And I have these, like, basically it's like an inordinate inflammatory response is what I deal with. And so I'm starting to have like a little bit of rash happening, but I've only been putting milk in my coffee because I don't think that's what it is. I think it's actually contact with the animals that's doing it, but I'm just gonna like push through it and hope that my body regulates, because I really felt like I needed to do this, and I think it's the right thing to do. I might end up having to milk. If this doesn't chill out, I will have to start wearing sleeves and potentially gloves to milk, which will feel really silly, but I would rather, I'm not getting rid of the goats. I'm not doing it. Like, I'm gonna keep them. And if I'm gonna push through whatever this response is, and I'm hoping that, that it'll mellow out. Actually going to take a couple of the jars of older milk in to make my cheese, because like this is from the 4th, so it's 3 days old, which is still very much fresh enough to make fresh goat's cheese. But if you let goat's milk get to be about a week old, it starts to taste like a goat. Well, you guys, I'm about to head in. I'm gonna have my arms full, so I'm gonna put my camera underneath my arm and just tote it in. I'm shooting a lot of content for the Farmer's Table today for my cooking channel. If you happen to have missed out that exists, I'll put a link to it down below. I've been doing it for the last few months, and I've shared lots of things already, but I'm very excited because we're getting into the season where there's a lot more like fresh coming in on the farm, and that's what I'm working on today, is some of the stuff that's readily available here on the farm. So thank you for hanging out with me today and all the days that you do. I bless you. Until next time.